Welcome, everybody, to the podcast. My name is Florian Rölk, and I'm here with my good friend, my best friend, Austin Zest.
What's up? Austin here. Welcome, everybody.
And I'm here today with Austin to ask him some insightful questions so that we can get to know him even better. Austin, you moved from California to South America in a pretty interesting way. And so we've been speaking between us a lot about the challenges that we had here in South America and what drew you here. And I know that you're helping people awaken their pineal gland, or kind of clean up their lives, make the body the temple again, so that they are able to receive more better insights and live a better life. And I would like for you to explain to the viewers how that ties in, how you came from California to here, and how all of that has to do with the pineal gland.
Yeah, great question. So that's from in California, I would say around 16, 17 years old, I kind of had this sort of awakening at a very early age that I had no idea what I was supposed to do with that, because when this started happening, I started questioning things. I remember the day exactly, maybe marijuana had something to do with it, right? Smoking pot. However, what hit me was a lot different than a lot of the other people who were doing pot, just kind of I remember doing weed in the forest and then looking at everything, it was just like this, like a sort of like anxiety and just insecurity hit. But in that was just, I was questioning everything, and it was almost like the matrix just started melting away, and I saw like, oh, what is this world that we're in? What the heck is going on? And I remember that. I remember walking to the bed, and I just remember seeing everybody and everything, and the trains going by, and it was just like the buses driving by and the food, and I'm like, what is this place? Like really, what are we doing here on planet Earth? And then from there, 16-year-old, I started questioning that to my friends at school and stuff, and people thought, that's interesting. They're not really thinking that, but they're like, wow, he's, and then I started really speaking and thinking in such a deep, profound way at everything. And I remember just thinking in a very philosophical way for like a 16-year-old kid, and getting the validation from my friends. I had good friends too, and who were just like, yeah, man, you have a different way of thinking, and then I would sometimes be very positive about it and help people with their issues and situations as a young kid. And I would talk with the vice principal, we would talk and have adult conversations because I was thinking on that level, like an old man or something, So I was searching so much for this, and having grown up in the church, in church and stuff in California, and it didn't really give me what I was looking for. So when I would talk to the people in church, these questions I had, what are we doing on earth? What is going on here? People would get kind of, they would stand back. They didn't want to go into it because maybe it caused them anxiety. So that's okay, and then for me, what happened is over time, I got into trouble and started, drinking and stuff. And then, because drugs and alcohol and stuff, ended up taking that question away, kind of, because people didn't know how to deal with me. My family didn't really, they were kind of like, oh, this is just too much. This is, we don't want to think about these things too much. I don't know. Austin is Austin, right? So I felt, and then a lot of people around me just didn't know. I didn't have much people to relate to. So then I just kind of went into that other world and kind of the, hustling, and I just went fully into that, got into that scene and got validation and just found a way to make it work, even through that. And I found that when that started, I kind of stopped searching for quite a while and went deep into these other things. Some of these activities were criminal, to tell you the truth. But I was anyway. So this is my early 20s, and started getting more, and I started getting more into these lifestyle, growing up into these other neighborhoods where I met people who were doing this stuff, in black neighborhoods, really, to tell you the truth, and just like kind of, I had friends like that who were just into that lifestyle, so I became very attracted to that because it gave me meaning and purpose, even though it wasn't the best stuff that I was doing. I was doing, what would be regarded as is not the best, right? Criminal thing, you can just think of all those things, right? But it gave me purpose and meaning and validation. and it kind of turned off that sort of light, that sort of questioning. But that never really went away, because the more pain that I experienced with all that stuff, and I kept experiencing pain and just like till for many years, until I finally reached a limit with all that. And it was either kind of like I was either going to die or not, or end up in prison. Those were kind of getting to be my options. And granted, I'm like 24 years old or 23 or something, very young still. So I'd lived like a lot of lives, it felt like, in a very short time span, and I learned a lot of things in those years. And then I ended up flying down to Mexico City and doing Iboga, which helps you detox from drugs and alcohol and that stuff, and it's a very powerful, it's a root from Africa that you take it, and it gives you a experience, like a psychedelic experience, for about 20 hours. And you feel your whole body change, and it takes you to like meet your higher self, and like God, and just like the divine, and it's like a grandfather that kind of whips you into shape, and you have to see everything that you've done, that you've accumulated, and you have to see it right in front of you, and there's no escaping it. You have to. You can't even like move barely. So that was a very incredible experience. I think I was 25 years old or 24 at that point, and then going through that experience. And then I went deeper into Mexico City, which up in the mountains, where it was an ayahuasca retreat for people who were experiencing similar issues, depression and addiction and stuff. And then I started to do more of the ceremonial work and with the ayahuasca. And I remember all my questions were answered, because that was kind of my intention. I wanted all, my questions about life and why are we here and blah, blah, blah. What is this existence of this world? Like, those are the things that were plaguing me. And all of that got answered during those times. So I remember feeling so relieved. I was just like, oh, so what was all that, And I remember feeling like really good about that. Just like, oh man, so many of my questions were answered, really, like truly, not just like a little bit. They were all answered. And would I be able to repeat exactly what I was told? No. Because like each individual kind of has their own journey in that. There's not really just like a answer. It's like you need to discover that for yourself and not be afraid. And I'm glad I never stopped, even though it took me to some very dark paths. But I'm glad that I never stopped searching and listening to other people. Hey, you just need to accept. Right? You just need to accept what they're telling you. I never could. I still don't. I still constantly am searching too. But what gave me that was a certain stability and a security that, hey, okay, it's for me personally, the answer was very simple. We're here to live, learn, reproduce, and do the best we can. and it's actually a very loving thing. Because like, even though I was into all this bad stuff, it wasn't like, oh, you are a bad person for doing this. It was like, it showed me, and I felt some of the things that I did, and like, okay, those weren't the right things to do, but now I know. So don't keep doing them, and so you have to learn, and so that's kind of what ended. And then I ended up, a few years back there, and then I ended up in South America again because I was so attracted. I went to Colombia, lived with worked with shamans down there, and I just was attracted to South America because of that, because of indigenous culture, because of native lifestyle, because of all of that, which was just, I thought, was more connected to the earth and more like I just had this pull. My heart was pulled down here, and for experience, and just like I just felt attracted to something, like that. And so that's what ended up me down in South America, and synchronicities and dreams. My whole life's been like that, very out there kind of guy. So I figured out how to integrate the both, which not a lot of people can do. And that's what I am intending with my channel, to show people how to do that. People who are lost in all these things, and it's very hard to function like that. Your day-to-day life and hang out with your family and hang out with regular people. And when you're on this type of level, it's a very isolating, lonely situation. So so since then, I've been able to really ground all of that into businesses, into life, family. I met my fiance down here. We're getting married next month, and root all of this stuff and to create all of that into something great. And to create meaning out of this. It's like, out of your questions and stuff. And then in all that, you start to find the answers. you really start to find the answers. And it's like, oh, okay. But it's an individual journey. There's no just like one answer, one size fits all. This is it. It's something that it pushes you to work a little bit. And I think that's kind of the point. It's not for us to just submit and live a mediocre life. I just never wanted that. I wanted a life that's like, wow, and to really live in a major way. So, but yeah, so that's kind of in a short how I ended up here in South America, and I'm still here to this day. And we're just now things are opening up to where I figuring out like the pineal gland. So the pineal gland has a lot of weird like a lot of incorrect. I would say people think it's like some weird thing, right? It's like. For me, it's very simple. It's an antenna. It's just like the antenna. Remember, people used to have TVs, right? They used to have TVs with antennas sticking out of them. Okay, and I remember when the signal was screwed up, you could put like aluminum foil on it, and then the signal would get better, and then the TV would get clear. Or you had to move the antenna to get more clear. Right? So that's what I feel like the pineal gland is. So through, fluoride in the water, Gatorade and whatever, all this stuff, fluoride in the toothpaste, these certain chemicals that are blocking that signal. So you're not getting a clear signal from, call it the divine, just call it simply a better connection. It doesn't even you don't have to put anything. It's just a better connection, because you as a human being are way more powerful than you can never even imagine. Like we haven't even figured out even at all like how powerful that we are. We have in the past, as you can see in the evidence all around the world. There was clearly something incredible going on. Just look at Egypt. Look at an Egyptian documentary in Egypt and the pyramids and everything. Clearly there was something incredible going on. But when that signal is blocked, we're not living our full potential. So that's all I'm saying is like we can figure out how to clean that up a little bit, get the signal a little bit more clear, and then you'll start to find your path will become a little bit more clear, or a lot more clear. And you'll be able to start to make better decisions that are more based on your true self. So you feel authentic with your path and you feel right about your path. You'll get better dreams. You'll get more clear signal in your dreams. When you meditate, it'll be better because you'll have a more clear system. You'll understand more what you're doing, where you're going. And that's very important, especially on this path where, because then you can fall into religions and cults or just fall back into drugs and fall into all these temptations that was so waiting for us right there, all these other things. So by kind of cleaning these things up, doesn't mean be perfect. I'm not perfect, but it's like you get it enough to where you're like, okay, I feel good about myself. I feel good about where I'm going. I know where I'm going. That is a very powerful situation to be in. And then all the pain that you've endured, all of that stuff, then it starts to have meaning and wisdom. So, and because your thoughts are your thoughts, if it were up to them or your memories of the past, you'd be in your head all day thinking about horrible things that you've done or just things that have happened to you. And then it wants you to be stuck on repeat. And that's like what, when I read Dr. Joe Dispenza's books, which heavily influenced me as a youth and still do to this day, but how when you start thinking about the past, right? Something that you did, whatever, something went wrong or a trauma or whatever, you think it in your brain, your body in like manifestation itself. Let's just say manifestation is like a person. Manifestation itself doesn't know the difference between that and like when you're thinking about it and then the actual event. So we keep repeating the same thing. Have you ever had that where you're like, hey, why does this thing keep happening to me? I keep repeating the same situation. This person rejected me and I feel like this again. Well, I did that to myself because I'm on the same loop, and the emotions and stuff get so they get so used to negative emotion that we keep recreating that over and over again. So that's kind of what more or less what I help people with, and more in the direction that I'm going in, And we utilize like breath work and just, real simple grounding exercises and just community, talking and talking this stuff out a little bit helps. Because nobody has to be isolated in this. You don't have to be isolated, but it is very hard to find other people who think like you, right? Think like this. So you can get very isolated, but that's also not the job of the people around you for them to understand where you're at, because everybody's on their own cycle. And also, when you start living your life a bit more lighter and more successful and a little bit more, then they might start questioning you a little bit more. Hey, what are you doing that's different? Instead of like, oh, I need the rest of the world to wake up already. I need them to change. I need the world to reach, maybe you got to be the one, even though it's difficult, you might be the one to implement the changes. So that, yeah.
Wow, that was an incredible sharing. Talking about integrating the two, and also talking about making peace with the path that you're on and receiving a more clearer signal, I'm curious, because I know that basically since the very first days when we've met, it was clear to me, and probably to a lot of other people that have met you before, that you got political ambitions. You want to get and be making changes at some point. It was, very clear to me that if you weren't doing that at some point, then you wouldn't, this is just naturally coming out of you. And I'm curious, because you shared with me before that currently you're working a 9-to-5 job right now in order to support the family, and how do you integrate the two? How do you integrate the great ambitions in receiving the clearer signal while doing something that is the right thing to do, but might not be the purest, clearest expression of who you are? And how do you maneuver that? And what is your decision-making framework for anybody else who is in the same position where they feel, I'm currently working a 9-to-5, but I do feel that I want more, or I even have political ambitions myself, or at least the position, or getting into a position where I can make a positive influence.
Right, sure.
Can you speak on that?
I love that question, man. Because that is so powerful, such a powerful question. Because I work a 9-to-5. I am customer service rep on the phone. I make good money for Peru. I'm able to support family. I'm able to invest in cryptocurrencies. I'm able to do the job is it's a job. You're helping people. I try to find even though I'm 32 years old, about to be 33 next month, so I need to remind myself how young I am. Not everybody's in that situation, but at least remember that we all, if you're here listening, you probably have a number of years left still, and so for me, knowing that has really helped me. It's just like, I got plenty of years, and I'm learning so much. As far as like the 9-to-5 job, and maybe it's not the thing that you want to be doing forever. Look at what can you learn from it? How can you do your job the best? So if given the opportunity to do what you actually want to do, because even if you're doing exactly what you want to be doing, it's still going to be days where you got to work. There's going to be days where you don't want to do that. And how do you find a way to do your best in that? So in this job that I have now, I'm learning so much on how to deal with people, interpersonal. So like emotional, people call me and they're upset and they're blaming me for something that a huge corporation might be their fault or whatever. But I have to kind of accept responsibility and not get emotionally attached to that other person. So that's a skill. If I do want to, move back to the United States and become the mayor of a town or whatever, definitely going to have to know that. Definitely going to have to not take that personally if somebody's, calling me out or whatever. So like that's one thing, even though customer service rep, mayor of a city are completely different on the social ladder, on the social hierarchy, right? But actually, you can find similarities in all these things. So that would be the one thing that I would say. And somebody who's in their job and they're like, oh man, I don't want to do. Well, sit down with yourself and be really real about what you actually want to do. And maybe put down the phone for a minute or stop the Netflix or whatever, or the bottle or whatever's going on, and write out and visualize where you actually want to be. Like, what do you want to be doing? And have a general idea of that. Then you can go from there. So for me, the whole political base, it's not it's more something that it's like it's in me. It just naturally comes out when I talk about it, because I follow politics and I find it fascinating just seeing, the leaders of the world do their thing, and it doesn't seem like an easy thing at all. And I see why most people don't want to get into that. A lot of people who do get into that, they want power, they want to control people, they want the money, so they see me. When I see that makes me kind of sick, like literally, like I feel like actually, because that's completely not how I would want to get those things, is by controlling other people and all that. I really actually want people to find freedom with, in their own lives. But also I see not enough people stepping up to lead in this life. So, the last generations or whatever, I think a lot of people decided not to take the kind of responsibility and get into that. And now we see why that wasn't very good, for like good people to get into power, because they kind of let these other psychopaths start running things. And look at where we're at. It hasn't been great. Now we're playing catch up in so many places. And here in Peru, the corruption's so bad, it makes me upset. The education system, it's clear that they want people dumbed down here. And in the United States, I've seen that as well. But like here, it's actually way worse, the education. So that type of stuff literally gets me passionate. And we're like, well, how can we actually make a difference? Because I don't want to have a family born into it and just not do anything and just accept it just because it's hard or whatever so that's my ambitions for political. It's not like, and I don't know where it's going to be, but going back to Joe Dispenza's stuff is that's not up for me to decide. It's not up for me to control and all that. I have to visualize it. I have to visualize, at nighttime or in my meditations, where I want to be, up on a stage, making a political speech or whatever, or helping, wherever that role might be, maybe an ambassador, I don't know, but making things happen, but like cleaning up everything in my own life, as I'm getting married next month, right? Not doing the same mistakes that so many other men do. Cheat on their wives, go into the bottle and forget the kids and all this. It's like those types of things. Those are the things that I need to work on. And I know if I work on those things, that vision will come to fruition. And maybe I don't know exactly how it's going to be yet, but I know that if I do the right things, that it will line up accordingly, because that's the divine thing. It wants us to excel in it. The Bible says many are called and few are chosen. It's like, I don't know, and I don't mean like the chosen ones and all that stuff. I'm just saying, like, in general, it's like, okay, if you feel called to something, sorry, I'm spitting there, that I can't do in a political speech, but but you see what I mean? Like, many people are called and few are chosen, but it's like, if you have this in you and you kind of reject it, for me, that's too difficult of a thing to live with. So I realize not everybody has that, and that's okay. You have to accept what you are in life. So that's what I would recommend, is figure out what the heck, if you're working your job that you don't really like, figure out what you want to do. Like what is it? Not everybody has the same thing. Maybe it's just you want to own an orphanage and really genuinely help people. You want to own a zoo and help freaking lions. Oh, that seems like crazy. How can you do that? Why couldn't you do that? You can totally do that. So I think it's all possible, and things start to line up for you the more that you get more clear about your vision. Yeah.
You can totally do that for sure.
Yeah.
Getting back to Dr. Joe Dispenza's teachings, you said that you have been in some very hard substance abuse circumstances, and that is a position that you have gotten out of after many tries. And Dr. Joe Dispenza's teachings and meditations has helped you a lot about that. I wonder, how has that come about, and how is that? What has the experience been of somebody? If somebody in the audience is right now in these positions and they go for the bottle and they ignore the kids, exactly what you just said, or they just can't find the motivation, they feel it's not in them.
Yeah.
And by the way, the previous point that you made, I just had the conversation with somebody last week where in the Bible, Jonah, got swallowed up by the whale because he was ignoring the calling. Right. So that can also be that if you actually ignore that, it's not only just up to you. It's like if that path is for you, you will likely encounter pain if you don't follow the calling.
That's right.
And so how does that tie in with overcoming dependencies. And what have you learned for yourself psychologically about yourself in dependencies, and then especially how to get out of that with Joe Dispenza's teachings? And then how can we help other people who have less severe dependencies but still types of dependencies?
Yeah, man, great question. I'm sweating too, by the way, not because of your question, because we're in the jungle and it's a really hot day and I'm wearing a jacket and I have a wife beater on underneath, so yeah, well, we're just gonna have to deal with this. But yeah, like getting to the substance abuse thing, that is, most people are addicted to some sort of substance right now. And I would say with the cell phones too, people who don't even realize that. Food, it's not just in drugs. I feel like drugs was a blessing for me because it was so obvious and it brought me to pain so rapid, such depths of pain. Whereas maybe eating for 20 years and then you get a heart attack or getting fat or whatever, like, is more acceptable, right, in society. So I look at that now as like a blessing that the red light was so there and it just brought me to such depths of just pain, it took a while, took a number of tries, right, but also it was when you kind of stop trying. It's something, and that's a very tricky thing because there's people who need to seek absolute professional help soon. Otherwise they're not going to have that opportunity to quit again because they can die, especially right now with fentanyl in the United States and all that stuff, and it's only going to make things worse. So I would never say to somebody, oh, don't try. Definitely keep trying. But what I mean is, like, eventually it will, once you start to advance these other things in your life and get more responsibility, it quits you. It becomes boring. You don't even want to do that stuff. Like really, you don't even want. It's like, this is so lame because there's other stuff that makes me feel better, and then your dopamine, you get it in other ways. It just happens over time, and you have to get sick and tired of just being that experience. You just have to want more for yourself, and it's an individual process, and you have to really and try different things. You have to really kind of want that too, and there's no real like great answer for that. Like, hey, this is the way. Just for me, it gradually stopped. It started getting really boring, and like it really, and it's just and as far as like, I'm sorry, what was your other question again?
How the teachings of Dr. Joe Dispenza are tied in with that. Oh, yeah. And
okay.
And then also, as we're about to wrap up, where people then would be able to find you. So maybe you can talk about, how you're currently employing these teachings. What's your path forward? What would you like to give people as a last piece of guidance, and then where can people find you?
Yeah, so like Dr. Joe Dispenza stuff has always been like an anchor for me, no matter what point in my life that was so difficult and hard. I always knew that my mind was so powerful through to his books and his teachings that there would be times, take heroin, for example. That's a very difficult drug to quit, right? And there was times in my 20s where I would use it for a time, and then you go through a withdrawal time. And for most people, it'd be weeks or something. And I was able to overcome it in days, like 2 days. So I would, maybe the first day would suck, and then the second day, I'd be like, all right, I'm done with this. I'm going to sit down, even if I'm uncomfortable and stuff. I'm going to meditate and follow his teachings, and I would do it, and then I'd end up going to the gym. It would give me enough energy to go to the gym, which made me work out and sweat, and just, I'd feel good, and I'd overcome it. So, crazy. I mean, I'm not saying everybody can do that, but like...
How many times have you done that? Getting into that?
Too many times, probably 30 or 40 times. Yeah, maybe 30 or 40 times. Yeah, so because and the reason why it was so many is because I didn't like it. Like I would get bored and I would just like, this is not for me. But I had to go through that pain many times to really learn until it was like, yeah, this is not for me. But yeah, I went through that quite a number of times, going through that and up, and it kind of matched my personality at the time during my 20s. I had kind of this up and down sort of mind, and it was just really so it kind of it was what it was. Like I said earlier, it kind of gave me an identity too, to speak, so to speak, and so but getting out of that environment is very useful. So like, yeah, that's why I don't for the last 4 years, it's been over 4 years since I've touched that stuff, and that I had to get out of that environment too. And sometimes, if you're hanging around that same place with the same friends who are doing that, like there's something to be said. You shouldn't do that. That's one thing I can say with confidence. You maybe get out of that same environment that you're in that keeps making you do the same stuff. And that goes with drinking, that goes with all these, sicknesses, all these addictions that we're in. So anyway, but Joe Dispenza's teachings with that, it's so powerful because it helps you to create a new version of yourself. So, and it helps you to forgive yourself for those things that you've done, and turn them into wisdom. So his meditation specifically help you do that. You feel the emotions, and then even the bad emotions during some of his meditations. He helps feel the bad emotions, feel it, sit with it, so that way you're not like, when emotions come, you're not running away from them, because that is the drug addiction, the phone addiction, the adult content addiction, the relationship addiction. People have all these things. Is an emotional thing. And I realized with me, it was a big emotional thing. I was running away from it. Anytime I'd feel some kind of pain there or something, run away from that. Run away from that with drugs, or just run away physically, didn't want to deal with that. And then the more that I kind of realized that emotion was actually the best friend, was actually the best tool, was actually which is actually the way that humanity can help heal itself if we all figure that emotional thing out. Because man, like that's why a lot of the world sucks, is because like we're emotionally immature as humanity in a lot of ways. Not everybody, but a lot of us are. And so that with his meditations has helped me to overcome a lot of these things, and also create a new version of myself that I wanted to be. So that's why I love his stuff, man. Joe Dispenza's teachings is just, it helps you. And also seeing his story, even though his story is so much different. He was a 25-year-old successful chiropractor in La Jolla, California, which is a very wealthy town. And he studied, and just he's a guy I really looked up to. But and I still do. But his accident, everything ended it. That car wreck. He was doing Ironman. On top of all that, he was doing an Ironman. So, and then the car hit him, and he broke his back, and had to do, the doctor was telling him he's never going to walk again unless he does Harrington rod surgery, which he didn't want to do. He's a chiropractor, and he's like, I don't want a rod in me. And he was studying meditation at this time. So that's what made him say, hey, I'm going to try something different. I'm going to try meditation and reconstruct my spine in my mind, because he probably had studied Neville Goddard. He'd probably studied a lot of these manifestation guys from the past, and
what else are you going to do in this situation?
Well, you can do the surgery because everybody's telling you that.
But if that's an option, then all you're going to do is either give up or try, even if it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Seems unlikely.
Right. And that can be with anything, so that can be with addiction, that can be with people who get over super tragic things that happen in their life, deaths in the family, there's people who develop sicknesses because of that. A horrible divorce, a woman catching their husband cheating on them right in front of them or whatever, and it causes a trauma, and every time they think of it, and then the divorce happens, they have the kids, a few years later they have cancer, they have MS, they have all this stuff because of that on repeat, that trauma. And then the body thinks of it, and then the anxiety goes up, and then your whole body is flooded with these chemicals that are not meant to be stuck in you, that eventually will cause your immune system to actually deplete, because it's on hyperdrive, and then you get all these, you're susceptible to all these sicknesses and diseases and stuff. So he helps people break through that, and that's kind of what I'm kind of building off of his platform a little bit, in my own way, in my own personal way. It's kind of more like, he's also too in the most recent years done pineal gland, wrote a book up on the pineal gland, and he thought, well, a lot of people might not take me seriously now. And I watched his transformation, by the way, when I first started watching Joe Dispenza, after Evolve Your Brain, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, I'd see his interviews. And he was kind of reserved and kind of I remember, I still love listening to him, but I remember he's not necessarily the kind of guy I want to be like. He didn't seem super happy, and I don't know what was going on in his life. But it was interesting. I saw the change, though, when he said, I don't care what they're going to say about me. I'm going to write about my pineal gland experience. I'm going to write about the incredible experiences that I've had, not necessarily psychedelics, but psychedelic type experiences through meditation and stuff, and all these things. And then his whole demeanor changed. And in his interviews, he's just like this happy guy that I want to be like, kind of like how I'm kind of talking to you now, but almost like in a different way. So that's kind of, you can tell he's in his authentic self now. And I think that is the main thing, is we need to figure out how to be authentic within ourselves. So that's what I really help people. And if there's blocks in there, pineal gland is just like, that's like bare minimum, if you're doing a few of these things that are clogging that up, preservatives, fast food. I'm not like a doctor or anything, so I can't advise people on that, but definitely I can help people with a little bit of accountability on that, to stop doing these things and let's see what happens. And let's start to create a new, like, what do you want to do? Do you want to travel? Do you want to, like, who is it that you want to be? Like, really? And let's get there and let's become that person. So people can find me right now at my YouTube channel, Austin Zest, and then on Instagram at Awakened Pineal. And then, we're going to be creating a website real soon with that. And we're going to have, eventually retreats down here in Peru, and visit the sacred temples here, because that all, and do breath work and do some of these seminar stuff here as well. And it also, by coming down here, is going to show people what we can be as humanity, because you're going to see all these megalithic structures and stuff that was clearly something that we had access to, which helps remind humanity how amazing that they actually are. And I believe that was my initial, that was something that I felt as a young man, 16 years old in Oceanside, California, and looking at the materialism and everything, and just knowing that there's got to be something more for humanity. And it made all of that worthwhile, kind of getting into what I'm getting into now. So, I appreciate your questions, man.
Awesome. It's been a pleasure interviewing you.
Same.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Goodbye, everybody.